Chapter 21. Kalai, South Point. As it was out on the main highway that led to Kona from Waiohinu, I stopped for a while because I couldn't make up my mind whether to go to Naalehu or directly to South Point. My mind seemed to tell me to go straight to South Point and that I might get some answers that I was looking for. I had nothing special to look for, but what I would see might be of interest to me. But there was one thing that I knew, what my mother had spoken of Kalai, or Head, known as South Point. This was the place where the natives sailed to Tahiti and returned on the same route. She knew of a family that came from Tahiti in a double canoe and settled in South Point and never went back. One of the girls had married in our family. She was told that many Hawaiians sailed the same way and did not return. Probably they liked Tahiti and lived there with their families. She told me of a ku'ula that was kept by the people who lived at Kalai that brought in many schools of fish. She said she did not see it, but ate the fish. She was at Waiohinu, just 7 miles up the road from South Point, during a church meeting. This was a celebration where members of each church would bring their best singer to compete. The winning prize was usually a quilt blanket of a new design given by that community. In her group, a young girl was trained to sing the old chant that my mother learned when she was a little girl. It was given a melody for this occasion, but the words were the same. She claimed it was beautiful, and her group won the prize. The quilt blanket received was a design known as Kapa o Waiohinu. This quilt blanket had a design made of 4 large violet dahlias with green stems. Each dahlia was placed in the center of the 4 corners of the square white Indian head material. When all the dahlias were laid out, the stems would all meet at the center. The design was tacked to the cloth by basting. Then a small, neat, overlapping stitch attached the edge of the design to the cloth. Next, a green square material was laid down for the bottom of the blanket. A roll of soft white cotton was laid on the bottom cloth. The design cloth was placed over it, and the blanket was sewn together by large basting stitches. It was then rolled onto 2 wooden poles and set on 2 wooden horses with wooden pegs. The quilting was done in rows, a 1/2 inch apart, following the curvature of the dahlia and the stem. It was done by hand, with stitching in a diamond shape. This was an unusual method of stitching, but every native had his secret art known only to him. My mother had never seen or done this kind of stitching before, and had not seen the blanket being quilted. After the singing contest, they had a big luau. My mother ate the ahole, which is a silvery fish. It was either charcoal broiled, called lavalu, or cut in square pieces, salted and eaten raw, called poke. My mother liked to eat it raw. She made many friends, and they told her of the many aholes they caught to feed the people. She told them, "In Puna, we don't have that much fish. You must have caught them by the schools." They told her, it was the ku'ula that brought the fish in. All they had to do was use a net to cover the school of fish and pick them up with a small net at the beach and salt them at the same time. That was yesterday, and today you are eating them. Before you leave, we will give you some to take home so you can have your family taste the fish you brought home from Ka'u. I made up my mind to head straight to South Point. I started driving through the open plain that was covered with green grass and dotted with green milky bushes, nu'umela, which only blooms during the summer months. As soon as the buds begin to open, hordes of butterfly moths, called pulelehua, feed on the white flowers. When the trade winds are strong, The pulelehua are scattered all over the plain, on the ground, and in the air. Combined with the dust from the ground, it makes a heavy haze. Either you wait until the wind stops before you travel on, or close the windows of your car. If you do go on, you can hear the thud on the windows of the car, and your windshield will be covered with pulelehua, so it is almost impossible to see, so it is better to wait until the wind dies down. Even the animals turn their backs to the wind. After the wind stops, the air clears, and the ground is covered with pulelehua. Looking toward the ocean, less than 7 miles away, the plain seemed to slope downward about 10 degrees, with a few deep valleys to cross. As I was within sight of the lighthouse, I could see the ocean with its whitecaps as the wind was blowing about 15 miles per hour, and the seabirds were hovering around a school of fish. I stopped my car and watched. As I was watching, the birds were diving, and some of them had fish in their bills, and as they flew away, if a fish fell, it was caught by another bird below. Then still another bird would come over and try to take it away, and a fight would ensue, and the fish would fall into the ocean. Just watching this was spectacular. What these birds would do for their daily meal. It was lunch hour when I reached Mr. Johnson's residence. The house was painted white and had 3 bedrooms and a garage with a small storage room next to it. It was protected with a 3-foot-high galvanized fence around it and a sliding door for an opening. The door was open when I arrived. I drove my car inside of the fence and stopped near the garage. Mrs. Johnson and the little girl were home. I got out of my car and paid my respects to them. I asked where Mr. Johnson was. She told me he had gone to Naalehu to bring some fish he had caught the night before to the Shimizu Hotel, and he would be back that afternoon. He took his helper, a Filipino boy named Domingo, to help him change the wheel of the truck, as it had been giving him trouble for some time. He had ordered the parts, and the service station had called to come and pick them up. It was easier to fix at the garage. In the meantime, Mrs. Johnson asked me to have lunch with her. She said, "I am very happy you came to visit us. This is a very lonesome place to live, and far from everybody that we know. But I am happy, and I keep busy all day long as I do my work without interruption. I have my radio, so I can listen to what is going on here and on the mainland." For lunch, she served fried red fish called u'u, a Hawaiian rock codfish, a bowl of poi, and coffee and saloon crackers. I asked her if I could rest for an hour. She told me to make myself at home, so I went out to the veranda where there was a rest chair, sat down, and fell asleep for almost 2 hours. When I woke up, nobody was home. I walked out of the house and looked over the ocean. It was a beautiful scene. The sun was bright, the sea very blue with whitecaps scattered all over. There were a few pine trees in front of the house that made a rustling sound as the wind passed through the branches. I said to myself, "This is the place where I can relax and write whatever I have in mind." As I was standing there, Mrs. Johnson came along with the little girl. She asked me if I had enough rest, and I told her I did, and that I had come out to see the beautiful sight. I told her that this was a good place to relax my mind, and she agreed with me. She asked me if I was going to stay, and hoped I would, as I would be company to talk with. I told her what happened to my business, and that I was taking a rest for the time being, and would decide later what I would do. I told her, "I will spend some time with you, and while I am here, I will write all what I see and hear about the Hawaiians." I walked to my car and carried in a small suitcase.